Hello. This is going to be the introduction for this course. It's going to include material from this syllabus, along with some additional material that's going to help you throughout the semester. Please note that the information provided here applies to all aspects of this class, whether or not you're attending in the classroom, you are taking advantage of the flex nature of the course, or you're using the online courses. For those of you who choose to participate in a classroom educational setting, these rules also apply to you. The only difference is found in the expectations of the professor and his attitude towards classroom conduct. If you have ever been in a classroom in your life, then you should know these rules by now. There should be no talking in the class. You need to show up on time. You should not be using your phones in the class, and you should be respectful to not only your students, your fellow students, but also the professor. And if the professor deems it necessary that you need to be removed from the course, then he will remove you from the course. Please keep in mind, if you have any questions at all, if you're confused about any of your grades or there's comments that you would like to make sure that you talk to your professor. Understand, we can't fix what we don't know is broken. The course that you are currently enrolled in is History 1483, and it is a general survey of American history from the arrival of the first peoples to the end of the Reconstruction period in 1877. The course is designed to afford the student an increased level of understanding concerning the United States, its political, economic, social, and cultural developments, as well as the people who helped shape the nation. The facilitation of an increased level of understanding will result from introducing key historical and at times sociological concepts that provide insight as to why these events are occurring as they did. Students will appreciate the complexity, or at least I hope you will enjoy or gain an appreciation of the complexity of the human equation and thus the American narrative. Additionally, participants will learn the historical methods used to create the common narrative that is accepted by most recognized and credible historians. The textbook for this class is The Unfinished Nation. The author is Alan Brinkley, and you can use this ISBN number to help you identify the book that we are going to be using. It's an online edition, and it is critical. I cannot say this enough. It is critical that you get the online link to this McGraw-Hill textbook, because if you don't, if you feel that you are going to try to pass this course without the textbook, I can guarantee you, you will fail. For every chapter, there is a series of graded questions that must be completed, or you will lose access to those points. And those points have generally meant the difference between people passing and failing this class. Your professor is a strong believer in a concept that he calls the fairness principle. He attempts to use fairness in all of his instruction. I am committed to assisting you in obtaining the best grade possible, no matter what life throws your way. A general understanding exists that all students who are participating in this class are dealing with multiple personal, work, and additional academic demands, which at times might undermine their course performance. Please understand that I fully am aware of the fact that I am not your only professor, and I try to be understanding of that fact as much as possible. You will need to note that the course policies address these my commitment and allow for changes due to various different problems that might come up with you being able to meet your due dates. However, with that commitment, fairness also plays a role in considering the student's conduct and overall grading considerations. If I'm going to be fair to the entire class, it demands that no student is given more opportunities than their fellow classmates. Failure to follow the course policies will minimize a student's chances of receiving extra time or grade attempts. Additionally, requests for multiple adjusted dates will not be accepted, as, again, if I'm going to follow the fairness principle, it would not be fair to the other students who are meeting the demands of the class within the required time frame. I want you to kind of think about it this way. My job is to get you to the water. And my commitment to you is that I will carry you, I will drag you, I will walk you, I will run you. I will do whatever I can to get you to the water. Once I get you there, it's up to you whether or not you're going to drink or not, because I'm not going to hold your head underneath the water to make you drink. One, that's called drowning, and two, it's also considered a felony. You got to meet me halfway. There's only so much I can do for my students. If they're not willing to meet me halfway, then there's nothing else I can do. Please understand that as far as I'm concerned, grades are earned in this class. They're not given. And in case you didn't hear that, again, above all else, as far as I'm concerned, grades are earned, not given to students in this class. One of the most important things for you to remember is that you need to check the class announcements at least twice a week in order to stay up on all aspects of the class. If you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to email me at any time. If you want to meet with me in person, but you cannot, we can arrange for Zoom meetings. Again, email me and we can schedule a time. Now, of course, 9 out of 10 times, I'm going to try to schedule it for a weekday. But in special situations, I will even consider talking to you over the weekend. As your professor, I will ensure that all of you are provided the specific start and due dates for all assignments, tests, quizzes, essays, and extra credit opportunities. Additionally, I will provide every student access to material required to complete the course, as well as assistance in overcoming any possible uncontrollable obstacles you may come up against. Now, of course, this is within reason. And also probably the most important thing for this class, if you do not communicate with me regarding any difficulties you encounter, then there is little I can do to assist you or provide you guidance in how to complete this class. Students are responsible for completing all work by the stated deadline. As your instructor, it is not my responsibility to constantly provide you with reminders or warnings regarding timeliness. Late tests, quizzes, essays, extra credit opportunities, and other assigned work will not be graded, resulting in a zero score. And there will not be opportunities for makeup unless you can show me that there was an emergency, a legitimate emergency that prevented you from completing the assignment. Should you have an emergency, it is your responsibility to contact me prior to the deadline in order to determine if additional time may be applied. Please understand that if you contact me before the deadline, then you are giving me a possible reason. If you are contacting me after the deadline, then what I'm going to see is an excuse. I'll help you when I see a reason. I cannot help you when you give me excuses. Tests and quizzes that are attempted within the final 12 hours of the due date will not be reopened for the student. It is recommended that you allow the instructor at least 12 hours to address issues involving computer problems or Rose State College system problems. Remember, if a student encounters any difficulties, it is in their best interest to notify myself as fast as possible so that issues can be resolved timely. Waiting until the last minute or after the deadline will limit all possible actions available to not only myself, but to the student. When it comes to this course, you will have two primary resources. The first will be your textbook, and the second will be the lectures. Now, both are accessible through the module sections of Canvas, and this applies to all students regardless of the class type. So keep in mind, all of these lectures are recorded onto or into YouTube, and you will have links to those lectures. So even if you are attending this in a class format, and let's say you miss a day of school or you miss a class, you can go back and listen to that lecture through the links that I have provided. Now, one of the things to keep in mind is that information discussed in the book may not always be reviewed in the lectures, and vice versa. The information in the lecture might not always be used in or be found in the textbook. Make sure to follow both sources throughout the semester. And if you experience any form of confusion or contradiction in the material, once again, contact me and I'll give you an understanding of what is the conflict or what is kind of the shared narrative. Before the exams, students should consult the provided study guides and review the corresponding material found in their textbooks, notes, and PowerPoints. The individual should consider the process no different than if the test or quiz was administered in a classroom, as the same considerations and expectations will apply. Please note that once a test is started, it cannot be stopped. All assignments stopped before completion will not be reopened for a second attempt, and a zero grade will be applied to the course or to that examination or quiz. When it comes to your online discussions, each discussion topic is worth a total of 20 points, and every student must respond to the topic by providing multiple posts containing no less than 4 complete sentences. Please understand when I'm saying this, I'm basically saying you cannot respond to your fellow students with, yeah, they're right. You've got to give me something more than just that, or I agree, or however short response would be. I need to know that you understood what they stated and what your opinion is of what they stated. So, your first posting, which is in all honesty an answer to the discussion question, is worth 5 points and it is required by the first deadline. Now, the first deadline, if the discussion opens on Monday, then the first posting is due by Wednesday at 11:59 p.m. If your discussion opens on a Tuesday, then the first posting is due on Thursday by 11:59 p.m. Failure to meet this 48-hour deadline will result in a zero grade for the entire discussion. I apologize for this. I don't like doing this, but unfortunately, this was something I was forced to do when towards the end of the various semesters, I found that the majority of the students were waiting till Sunday or Monday with about 4 hours remaining till the due date to actually start the process, which was not fair to the other students. And remember, in this course, I tried to create an environment that is fair for everyone. So after you post your answer to the discussion question, then you will be required to provide 3 responses to your fellow students. These two need to be no less than 4 complete sentences. And these will be due, let's say, if the assignment opens on Monday, then it needs to be turned in by 11:59 on Sunday. If the discussion opens on Tuesday, then it needs to be turned in by 11:59 Monday. So again, your first posting is due within that 48-hour window, but everything else can wait till the final day. All I need you to do is just answer the question that has been issued for that discussion within the 48-hour timeline that I explain here. With these online discussions, there will be no tolerance for hateful language, inflammatory discussion posts, or any other attempt to make individuals the source of scorn. An offending student will be barred from the discussions should they fail to conduct themselves like a respectful adult. This is pretty simple. We can disagree with each other without needing to be insulting of each other. This is what discourse is all about. This is what debate is all about. Maintaining an intelligent and respectful discussion in the hopes of exchanging information and getting to learn about how other people think and see things before them. As long as you can do that in this course, you will be just fine. But again, if you cannot, if you resort to making the other person look bad or by insulting them or just being rude in any way, shape, or form, I will be forced to remove you from the discussion posts, which means that let's say you are warned 3 times, the next 7 discussion posts, I will not be taking your answers and I will be blocking you, which means you don't get those 20 points for each of the 7 thereafter. And if that's the case, then you're looking at possibly failing the course. Now, to access the discussion, please use the Canvas course tab that will direct you to the discussions. In this course, you will be assigned 3 papers that are intended to develop your individual writing skills and promote critical thinking. Now, these are located in the module section of Canvas, and the guidelines, an example paper, and a video are provided for writing an essay in this class. Now, these are 5-paragraph essays, a minimum of 2 pages, and they are to be submitted through Canvas. You can access the essays through the assignments tabs located on the left side of the Canvas homepage. Make sure that you read the instructions carefully and contact me if you have any questions at all. As I kind of talked about before, I understand that you are maintaining lives outside of this course. And because of this, I fully recognize that throughout the semester, you will have problems that will sometimes need to kind of be bailed out of a difficult situation. And that is why I have implemented extra credit assignments throughout this course. Now, understand these are built into the course, which means that they are limited in number and no additional extra credit opportunities will be provided beyond what is already established for this course. Like all other assignments, the extra credit opportunities will not be extended beyond the due dates unless a student can provide me a very good reason prior to the deadline. And one of the reasons why I say that is that these are the one assignments. This is the one assignment that is going to be open for more than 6 days. All of your other assignments remain open for approximately 6 days. Nevertheless, sometimes maybe a little bit more. But your extra credit assignments can be open from anywhere from 2 weeks to 4 weeks, depending on the assignment. Okay? As Rose State College students, you are expected to understand and follow the basic standards of honesty and integrity. And in this class, that is the same. Some common violations of these basic standards of academic integrity can include, but are not limited to, copying other students' answers, buying other people's work, exchanging information during a quiz or examination, using notes, books, or technology, including AI programs and software, unless expressly permitted to do so by the instructor, getting access to material before taking a quiz or examination, and of course, presenting work completed for one course as original work for another. Keep in mind also that assisting anyone in engaging in such violations qualifies as academic dishonesty. And you need to keep in mind, too, that all rules and standards of academic integrity apply equally to all media, whether it's in print, electronic form, or any other form. Now, plagiarism relates to the use of thoughts, ideas, words, phrases, or research of another person or source as one's own without the explicit and accurate credit to the original author. Keep in mind, artificial intelligence, the use of their programs or software to complete an assignment, qualifies in this class as plagiarism. Now, to avoid plagiarism, ensure that you put all copied material in quotes and provide citations as to where the material came from. Keep in mind, failure to do so will result in the loss of points or possible referral to student affairs if it happens repeatedly. I cannot state enough the seriousness of plagiarism and its adverse effects on your academic experience. If you want to get a D or a C in this course, I can tell you this. All you'll really need to do is attend the majority of your lectures or watch the majority of the provided videos. Review the material before starting an assignment, quiz, or exam. In other words, study. You need to turn in all your assignments, or as many of them as you possibly can, and for each of those assignments, especially if you're not turning them all in, you need to get the best grades possible. And by doing that, I can pretty much figure that you're going to get anywhere from a D to a C grade. If you cannot meet even the basics of this, then you will fail this class. However, if you want something better than a C grade, then this is what I would suggest. Attend all of the lectures and watch all of the provided videos. Take good notes. Ask questions when you need to. Review the material before starting an assignment, quiz, or exam. Again, study. Complete all your assignments, quiz, and exams. Get good grades. But most importantly, take this class seriously. Here's some hints for additional success. Review the comments provided by the instructor on all of your previous assignments, especially when it comes to essays and discussions. I can guarantee you that if you do this, you'll avoid your previous mistakes and you will get the best grade possible. And as I've stated several times throughout this introduction, talk to me, email me, talk to me before or after class if you're coming to my classes. If not, then email me. If you want to go to a Zoom discussion, we can do that. I am here for you. Remember, I am more than willing to get you to water. That's my job. I'll carry you. I will drag you. Like I said, I'll do everything possible. But once I get you there, it's up to you to drink the water. I can't do anything after that. Now, if you decide after a while of not drinking that you want to actually participate, I will still be here for you. Hopefully it'll be enough time that we can get you back on the board. But again, it requires that you meet me at some point halfway. And at that point, that it is not too far gone that you have lost any opportunity to make up for some lost grades. All right, so we've pretty much covered everything in the syllabus. If there's anything else that you need to know, it will be in your syllabus. Now, why is it that history matters? Well, all people are components of an ever unfolding human story. The effects of our past are inescapable as humans are rooted in time. Although history may focus on the past, it determines the present and it determines the future. Why? Because history, to the most part, is living. It's always evolving. It's always being reinterpreted. Through various means, people develop perceptions about their past and its linkages to the present. They embrace these perceptions as a statement of self and their place in society, even if the ideas are sketchy, uninformed, or outright mythological. It is because of this that it gives us an understanding of the events that are going on today. What events have had the greatest effect on Americans today? Which people have affected the country most today? How do they affect the United States of America today? These are the things that can possibly help you in this course. A lot is going on in the world today, and it's history. It's our past that can help you better understand why these things are happening and what might be the best course of action towards the future. Remember, if you know your history, you can learn from your history. So let's take a look at some historical myths. Now, the first myth is that history is linear, A, B, C, or 1, 2, 3. That there's a cause and effect of one event to another, creating a straight line in order to follow. In short, a very simple and easy way of looking at the world around us. However, reality is far different than myth. A single historical event is the result of numerous situations existing at the same time. As such, the so-called single historical event is, in truth, multiple events that converge together at a specific time, creating a complete narrative assessing numerous contributions. And this, I would ask you to apply to yourself. When you get into a car accident, is it just that you got into the car, drove to point A, and then along the way you got hit? Or do you have to account for what happened with the individual that hit you, the road conditions? We tend to want to oversimplify history, but that's impossible because we're dealing with people, and people are anything but simple. We tend to think of history as a series of events, and we tend to not understand that it is actually a series of events that relate to the human element or the human equation. In this course, we are studying the human equation or element. We are studying its effects when it comes to human behavior and how it basically relates to historical events, whether they be natural or human made. It may be seen as a chaotic factor that can alter a narrative despite environmental conditions which should dictate the outcome. It can be positive or negative in nature. It can display strengths or weaknesses. And at times, it is completely unpredictable. A good example of this would be the Titanic. When we think of the shipwreck of the Titanic, we tend to think that it hit an iceberg and that's what caused it to sink. But in honesty, it's a lot more complicated than that. The actions of the crew during this period could have created a completely different outcome. As a matter of fact, if the Titanic had hit the iceberg straight on, it would have actually survived the impact. It was the actions of the crew to try to turn away at the last minute that basically sealed the fate of the Titanic and nearly 2/3 of its passengers and crew. So keep in mind, when we're talking about history, we are talking about humanity. And because humanity is complicated, so is history. So let's take a look at that complexity. If I asked you to write on a single piece of paper a narrative that would sum up your entire life, well, let's even make it better than that. Let's make it for one paragraph. Would you be able to provide me enough information so that I could form a complete picture of who you are? Would I gain an understanding of your family, of your friends, of your experiences, both positive and negative, the jobs that you've had, your likes and your dislikes, and why you have these likes and dislikes? Would I be able to gain an understanding of your fears or your personal philosophies? Generally, I would have in my mind you shaking your head with a resounding no, that this would not be possible. And you're right. Again, our lives are far more complicated than one single paragraph, if not one whole page of writing. Now, I want you to imagine if it is too complicated for you to surmise your life in one page or one paragraph, could we do that for the entire class? Could we do that for the entire school? Could we do that for the entire state of Oklahoma, if not the United States of America as a whole? No, we cannot, because again, when we bring in that human element, especially when we're talking numerous amounts of people and the effects of group dynamics, we are going to find that trying to maintain an accurate narrative of the human experience is complicated, extremely complicated. And I can guarantee you by the end of this semester, you're going to hate that word complicated or complex, because I'm going to use it a lot to show you the difficulty in trying to maintain a all-encompassing narrative. Now, we have done this. We have been able to create a pretty good understanding of what has gone on in our lives. However, when we try to access it through the internet or through television or through the movies, unfortunately, in order to keep the attention span of an individual, we can only do it short term. We can't do it long term. And that's where academic history comes in, the role of historians and people like myself, who try to focus on gaining as much of the story as possible so that at any one point in time, and we'll discuss the process by which this happens, we can create the most accurate narrative possible using whatever material, factual material, is available. So another aspect that we need to keep in mind is the historical context, which refers to the moods, attitudes, and conditions that existed during a certain period of time. The setting for a specific event that will have an impact on the relevance of the event. The context can involve the elements that surround the person, the conditions that they are experiencing, or the characteristics of the people they are around. Context is an important factor to consider when understanding history. And let's use an example. You go to a restaurant and it is 10 o'clock at night. An individual walks by you. They are stumbling, they are slurring their speech, they seem unable to understand what is going on around them. This is a restaurant that serves alcohol. There's even a bar in the corner of the restaurant. What would be your first assumption? Would it be that this person is intoxicated? No, that would be a logical assessment. But let me toss something else into this. What you may not know is that this person is actually employed at the restaurant and they have been working a, let's say, 10-hour shift. They are diabetic. They have not eaten the right amount of food that day. They have not been drinking the right amount of water or other necessary fluids. And they are now, are they still drunk? Would you consider them drunk? Or would you now suppose that maybe it has something to do with their diabetes? Again, context is everything. And as you're going through this semester, I want you to think about the context when we talk about these stories. What is not being discussed? Because that's what a historian has to account for. We have to account for all aspects, not just what's on the surface, but we need to dig deeper to make sure that the narrative that we're providing accounts for all issues and accounts for any possible contextual material that is relevant to that narrative. One of the other things that we're going to be using throughout this semester is the argument or discourse related to intentionalism versus functionalism. Now, originally, the terms intentionalism and functionalism were applied to the Holocaust and the Third Reich's origins. However, it also has applications towards other historical discord or debate. Now, intentionalism is the argument that specific events or conditions were created and engineered for a specific reason or outcome. If we apply this to the Holocaust and the Third Reich, it is that from day one, Adolf Hitler wanted to get or to terminate the Jewish population of Germany and Europe itself. Functionalism states that specific events or conditions occurred through a series of unintended events that resulted in a specific outcome. So again, if we were to look at the Third Reich, Hitler's relationship to the Holocaust, is that no, he did not intentionally focus on trying to annihilate the Jewish race or the Jewish people. But over a period of time, he found himself drifting in that direction, and that ended up becoming one of his focal points. But it was not something that he initially started out. Now, of course, there's debate on this, and it is still a debate that continues to this day. But we can also apply this when we talk about American slavery. We can talk about this when it comes to how we treated Native Americans, how we entered into World War II. All kinds of issues can be applied or can be examined through this discourse or this debate related to intentionalism versus functionalism. And keep in mind, these are not absolute factors, as they might be a blend of each other throughout periods or specific periods of history. One of the things that we want to avoid in this course are two road bumps that basically can hinder our understanding, our responsible understanding of the historical narrative. Now, the first one is known as the historical fallacy. It is an informal fallacy that occurs when one assumes decision makers of the past possess the same information as those subsequently analyzing the decision. In short, I can look at a battle that took place during World War II and say that the general who made these decisions was out of their mind. They were absolutely insane, and these were stupid decisions. However, by saying that, by taking that route, I then leave out the real issue. And that real issue is I wasn't there. I don't know how much information he had to make his decision. I don't know the conditions around him, the environmental conditions that may have affected their decision. So in short, what we're talking about here is trying our best to avoid, though it is popular to do, the armchair historian or armchair quarterback that's basically second guessing everything that happened. Now, as a responsible historian, I am trying to figure out why things happened and should they have happened differently. But if I do that, I always need to keep in mind that I wasn't there. And that if I'm going to question their actions, I better have a full understanding of everything that they were experiencing at the time. Now, presentism is a mode of historical analysis in which present-day ideals, such as moral standards, are projected into the past. Now, we have every right, and to some extent, we should look at the past and question the morality of specific events. But as a historian, we need to also keep in mind that it's not a responsible act. If I am to look at an individual, a white individual who is growing up in the period of slavery in America, and say that they were wrong for supporting slavery, am I considering the fact that this individual from the moment they were born, was taught by their parents, by members of their church, by members of their community, that slavery was right and this is the way it was. And especially if we consider that this person, let's say, never left the state of Alabama, would they know how other people live and how other people think? So, yes, we need to look back at events in our past and say, yes, those were wrong and they should have never happened. But at the same time, we need to avoid applying our morality to those points in the past. Because remember, a lot of what we believe in today came from the mistakes of people's past. So throughout this semester, I want you to practice some critical thinking. Critical thinking is a concept that has been developing throughout the past 2,500 years, if not longer. Critical thinking is the analysis of facts to form a judgment. Remember, we talked about the fact that history is complex, as several different definitions exist, which generally include the rational, skeptical, unbiased analysis or evaluation of factual evidence. Critical thinking involves self-directed, self-disciplined, self-monitored, and self-corrective thinking. It entails effective communication and problem-solving abilities, as well as a commitment to overcome natural tendencies of egocentrism and social centrism. And we'll take a look at this as an example when we look at the word freedom. So if you are in class while I am doing this lecture, then we will have an open discussion in class about freedom. If not, then this will be one of your first online discussions. So the question I'm asking you is to define freedom. We just got out of an election, and the word freedom was thrown around quite a lot. But did anyone ever explain what they meant by freedom? They talked about the land of the free, the protecting freedom, those brave individuals who served in the military and fought to protect our freedoms. The fact that the United States is a country that has more freedom than any other country in the world. Are these true? But before we can even determine if this is true, we need to figure out, what do we mean by freedom? First of all, is absolute freedom obtainable? If it is absolute freedom good or bad? Does freedom require a point where it actually it becomes a bad thing? Can you, again, have too much freedom? Can freedom interfere with a society's existence? So I want you to think about that. And then we'll talk about this when we start our first online discussion. So with that in mind, you have a basic understanding of what you're going to see in this course. You have a better understanding of the syllabus and kind of the direction we are going when it comes to this course. If you have any questions, as I stated quite a few times, feel free to reach out to me and we can discuss them. All right, your next lecture will be the first lecture of section 1. Have a good day.